Hey guys, Archery Nut. Today I want to go over balancing your hunting broadheads. You may think that going to the store and buying some broadheads off the shelf and putting them on your arrows, they're going to fly straight, but in some cases they don't. And so I wanted to show you guys the way that I balance my broadheads, maybe help you guys out. So let's get started. I'm going to bring the camera in a little bit closer so you can get a better view. Get up here a little bit closer. Oops. Here we go. And we'll zoom in and zoom out here in a little bit so you guys can get a better view of everything. Alright guys, so as you can tell, I got several different types of broadheads here. These are old broadheads that I've shot in the past over the years. Some of the new stuff I shoot now. And I just wanted to go over you the process, the way that I balance my broadheads to make sure that they fly straight. You want to make sure that when that broadhead's on that arrow, that you're, able to shoot it at 40, 50, 60, 70 yards and it's going to fly straight. And I'll show you the reasons sometimes they won't fly straight. Start off with, I guess when you buy you a broadhead at the store, you buy your packs of broadheads. First thing you do when you get home, put your blades in there, make sure that they go in there, and they're not loose. Make sure that they don't go in there too tight also. If it has a ring, this broadhead, I don't have the rings that go with it anymore, but they do have a little cotter ring that goes around it to hold the blades in place. Make sure that everything is secure, make sure that everything lines up correctly. When you put that broadhead on an arrow, the first thing I like to do is take that broadhead, put a little wax on it, on your threads, just a little tiny wax, doesn't take a lot, and then you're going to thread it on your arrow. That wax is going to help your broadhead from not loosening up. A lot of times you're carrying these quivers and your bow up and down mountains or hills or wherever you hunt. These broadheads will loosen up. The vibration, also in your vehicle, I don't know if you're on a quad, the vibration can loosen up your broadhead. A loose broadhead will deflect the arrow. It will not fly the way it's supposed to fly. So put a little wax on there. Any type of wax will work. The bowstring wax is what I use. And that will make sure that your broadhead is going to stay on there. Next thing you want to do, get your key, make sure that you tighten the broadhead up. You don't want to over tighten it, but make sure it's snug on there to make sure that broadhead is tight. You know what, let me check, let me make sure that I'm in focus here, guys. Okay, that looks pretty good. After you got your broadhead on there, you got a little wax on there, your blades are nice and straight, or the way that they're supposed to be. The next thing you want to do is spin your broadhead. And what you want to do with that is find you a table, a flat surface. I like this type of flat surface. Put your broadhead on there with your arrow and just spin it. And you're going to see how that broadhead acts. If it spins good, like this thing here is spinning really well, you can see that there's really not much movement on there, and that thing spins almost like a field tip. So that guarantees you it's going to fly like a field tip. So that's this, broadhead. This is a small broadhead. This is 75 grains. I got some 85 grains. I got these things are like 150 grains. These are things I used to shoot back in the day. These things are probably like another 150 grains. I got different sizes, these little muzzies, 100 grains. The smaller broadheads are going to be easier for you to balance. But even though you have to check that they are truly balanced. Some of these muzzies, I've had issues with these where I have to work with them to get them perfectly balanced. So a little small broadhead like this, after you got it on there, after you got your wax on there, and it spins like this, I mean, this thing is not moving. you know this thing's going to fly straight. So now if you got a, you know, you got a broadhead like this. This is an old broadhead. I've probably been hunted with that broadhead before. Here's another broadhead. I think these are like bear broadheads. I mean, this thing's really good for a big broadhead. I mean, it's pretty balanced for a big broadhead. But although these big broadheads, you know, this monster and this thing, these are broadheads I used to shoot with my recurve. As you notice, they have a lot of flat area. In this flat area, you know, when the air hits it, if it's a windy day, it's gonna cause some issues with your flight of the arrow. So, you know, I would recommend to stay away from these big flat ones unless you're shooting a recurve, you know, and you're shooting, you know, 20 yards, 30 yards max. Because there's no way to air go through these flat broadheads. This one does have some cutouts in it, but even though it still has a big solid spot in the middle where you know, the air can catch it. Although this thing's very balanced. So this is something you could hunt with. Here's an old Rocky Mountain broadhead, and I know this one is lopsided. And I don't know if you guys can see it. I'm gonna focus in a little bit, guys, so you can see it a little bit closer. I hope I don't get off the screen here while I'm doing this. I'll try to stay in line there. But this is an old broadhead, like I said. It's been shot before. Look at the bobble on this thing, guys. Y'all see that? There's no way that this thing is going to fly straight. This thing will veer off, and you're going to just wound an animal. So you don't want that. One thing that I do to straighten out these old broadheads, I got a little jig, and you can buy these online or you can buy them at the store. They got some better ones. This is just a little plastic jig that I use. And what I like to do, set your arrow on there and just spin your arrow. Spin your arrow, and I don't know if you all can tell, but look at the very tip of that broadhead. You're going to see that it's wobbly. It's going up and down. It's making a circle is what it's doing. So that right there tells you that this thing's got a problem. And it could be the shaft also. It may have a little bend, you know, where it screws in here. Like I said, this thing's been shot before. So you need to straighten it out. One way to straighten them out that I use, I try to find the high spot. I try to find the high spot of this arrow. It may be like right there. What you want to do is put some little pressure on it and try to straighten it out. Trying to straighten out that arrow. And it's not easy. It's not easy. You're going to have to work with it. Sometimes I worked with these for several hours trying to get them just perfectly balanced. This thing, it might not be able to be balanced because, like I said, it's been shot before, and I can still see it rotating on the tip. So you have to work with them. You have to work with these old broadheads. But this is the way to balance, to straighten them out. You want to make sure that tip right there, guys, is in line with your arrow shaft. It's got to be perfectly lined with your arrow shaft. So when this thing spins, it spins true. Look at this thing. It wobbles off the table. You don't want to shoot that at any animal. You're just gonna wound an animal. I wanted to also show you these Grim Reapers. These are broadheads I just bought. I haven't shot these before, but I've done a lot of research, and a lot of guys really like these broadheads. These are the mechanical broadheads, but I was very impressed how balanced these things are. I want to show you guys. Like I said, I've never shot these broadheads before. They're right out of the box. And check this out. Look at that. That thing spins like a field tip. So this broadhead right here, I can guarantee you, you know, you can shoot this thing out at 60 yards and it's going to fly true. It's going to fly true. And I'm just waiting for the weather to clear so I can get out there and start slinging some of these arrows. This is a broadhead that I use a lot. This is a Thunderhead 125s. These are 125s. This one spins fairly good, but it needs work. And you can see it you see how my arrow moves on the table. You see that? And when it moves on the table like that, it tells me that something is not right. It's not balanced correctly. Remember this guy? Look at that. See how perfect that's balanced? So this makes the world of a difference, guys. Your broadhead has to be balanced with that arrow so you get the perfect arrow flight, the same as your field tip. When you shoot out there, you know, when you're getting out there at 60, 70, some of you guys shoot at 80 yards, you want to make sure that that arrow is perfectly balanced. It will make a big difference. Let me zoom out a little bit, guys. There we go. So that's the way that I set them up, guys. I know that you guys have different ways. A lot of you guys have a lot of experience. So, you know, let me know what you think. You know, this may help you out. Maybe you've done this in the past, but for those of you guys that need some help with this type of stuff, this is the way that I set them up. It's worked for me in the past for several years. So thanks for watching, and let me know what you think. Thank you.